Hi, everyone. My name is Tej Yale. I'm the founder and CEO of Think Impact. We are a marketing agency based out of Rochester Hills, Michigan. Today, I'm very fortunate to have Mr. Jason Cavness of Cavness HR with us. And Jason, thanks for accommodating our interview. I greatly appreciate it. Thanks for being here today.
No, I appreciate you to give me this opportunity. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And thanks for everything you're doing.
For sure. Thank you. And just as a little backstory, I was actually very fortunate to be fortunate to be featured on Jason Cavness's podcast called the Cavness HR Experience. So for whoever's listening, please feel free to check out his podcast as well. He always has great guests and great business insights. So Jason and I kind of know each other from the Hack Diversity event, which was a diversity event that was put on in Seattle. But for Jason, if you don't mind, for those that are tuning in, can you please provide a little background about yourself?
Yes. So born and raised in the great state of Texas. I have a master's in human relations at Columbia University. I'm actually a retired Army officer, 25 years in the Army, 8 years enlisted, 17 years as an officer. And then, I think I'm safe to say most retired officers don't get into tech or startups, right? It's not what's done, right? And so I got involved. It's like this by happenstance. So, and before I go any further, another thing I want to point out is I'm another Myers-Briggs test. I'm an INFJ. And suppose only 1% of us are INFJ. So think of INFJ as like the introvert, right? It was kind of curious, I don't like small talk. Like someone meets me at a networking event. Do I really care how the weather is? Probably not. Do I really care how your football team? Probably not, right? But I love to get in front of people and talk, right? Like I really like getting in front of people and talk, which is it's kind of weird, And I also like doing is if I'm I like to people watch, right? Like I like to go to Starbucks and be in the corner of my computer. Like don't talk to me, right? But I'll listen to everyone else, right? So it's kind of weird. But suppose only 1% of us are like this, so we definitely think differently. So back here, I got involved in taking a startup. So back when I retired in 2015, back then the Army would say, hey, go on LinkedIn, find a job, connect with people. First of all, what's LinkedIn, right? We had no idea what this was, right? So we figured it out. So I'm on LinkedIn, reaching out to people who's saying, hey, I'm Jason, blah, blah, blah. And this person named Mark Monroe reached out to me. He said, hey, Jason, my name is Mark Monroe. Have a startup called Iron Fold. We want to have veterans and college graduates find jobs. Use a skills test because we don't think the resumes helps you all out find a job, right? You're at a disadvantage, right? Can we meet in person? You tell me how are we going to help you find a job? Sure, no problem. One question for you. What the blank is a startup? Like, I had no clue, no concept. You can't start a company. Companies already exist, right? There's already Amazon and Boeing. Like, you can't start a company. We're talking about, right? So, he laughed at everything. We met. He gave like a crash course one-on-one on startups, right? Like MVP, product market fit, kind of things. And a light bulb goes on my head. Mark, you ever think about HR, right? I said, oh, startups, we don't do HR to way down the road, right? We got to focus on other things. And by then, I was pretty intrigued by the startups. Like, it's pretty interesting, right? Like, man, this is, something I want to do. No light bulb goes off. Say, Mark, this stuff seems pretty interesting to me. You should let me join your startup so I can learn it, right? You still like critical chemistry. And, he said, let me think about it. By me being me, I pretty much hired myself, right? I started go to meetings, started go to network events, start just showing like doing stuff, right? Interesting side note, the person who did our marketing and the person who did our UX UI design both graduated from high school with my daughter in Seoul, Korea in 2007, or was it maybe 2006? So, and we found out maybe 2 months later that we knew each other, right? Like, are you actually Warren's dad? Yeah. And, so that's pretty interesting, right? Too, right? So that's pretty cool. Like most startups didn't make it, right? So after 2 years, it didn't make it. And like I said, did everything except from code and design. Like I pretty much, it was just some of the tech startups in Seattle. I was there like Monday through Sunday, right? Meet people, do networking stuff like that. And like I noticed, like, man, none of these startups have HR. Like of course a few do without a lot of funding, right? But most didn't, right? And when the time was for my folks coming in, I was like, man, maybe it's a business I could do. They tell you do your business research. According to the Small Business Administration, I think Dun and Bradstreet, Anytime Research, and these other organizations, there's 5 million companies in the United States with 49 or fewer people. And recent 49 versus 55 or 60. In HR, all the complicated stuff starts at 50, like, Obamacare, benefits, FMLA, all starts at 50, right? And I don't want to do that yet, right? And so, and most of these companies don't have HR because HR person like me is like 50 to 80,000 per year plus benefits. Of course, I can't afford that, right? Like, are you kidding me? And then you have the HR consultants. And HR consultants, that's who we want to put our business. Don't be one of those few good ones, right? But majority of them overcharging price and delivering value. And they had like horrible user experiences, their websites, crap, and like they'll do stuff like charge a small business $300 an hour. And the business owner will say, and then the HR consultant tell the small business owner, well, you need an employee handbook. Well, of course I know that. That's why I hired you. When can you make it for me? Oh no, I only consult. I only tell you what you need. Like, are you kidding me? So you tell the small business owner who's struggling, he has to pay you $300 an hour, and you still have to do the work. It makes no sense, right? And then we all know like companies like the big HR companies, what's our own name. If you Google them, like if you Google blank HR company customer service, it's you get all these bad reviews, right? And then, of course, they tell you validate your idea. And so I talked like 331 small business owners over a 6-month time period. It's more detailed than this, but basically, would you pay for HR if you did what you wanted? And I talked to people all across the nation, like they sent LinkedIn messages, meeting person, And one thing I would tell your audience, like, people want to help you, right? You just have to ask, right, and find the time. And of course, you got to give some value too, right? And good thing for me at the time, I had a podcast going on. I was able to say, hey, do you want to be a guest on the podcast? And most turn it down, most just answer the question, but I was able to say, hey, no strings attached. I also have the podcast too, right? So you got to give some kind of value, right? And make it worth the time.
Sure.
So the 331 people, 71% said yes, 19% said, well, we don't know, and 10% said they would never, ever, 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 ever pay for HR, right? Because they're a waste of time, right? So based on that, I thought I had enough to go on it. So that's kind of how the company got started and kind of the background. I got involved in tech and startups. Yeah. But I realized when you look at me, I don't like the stereotypical tech founder, right? Like retired Army officer stuff, like, most retired Army people are, right now on the porch swinging or the government job. I just said, like people, my kids tell me all the time, what are you doing, right? You should be like drinking beer and playing golf. I can't do it. Like I had to go batshit crazy.
Yep. No, I mean, I completely relate to that story. I mean, I can't sit for hours on end doing nothing. I think I would go nuts as well. I think maybe that's just entrepreneurialism within us as well. I know there were we kind of touched on the HR part of it. I was just wondering if you could maybe talk about like the early days of Cavness HR. I'm sure like every other entrepreneur out there, you probably face some roadblocks in maybe forming the podcast or kind of maybe some roadblocks that you hit along the way. Can you talk a little about that and kind of the strategies that you overcame when you hit those roadblocks?
Yeah, part of a question, what's the thing you don't know? So you might think but you really don't, And then like there's knowledge out there, like something as simple like, it's like Google Analytics, right? Like, no, I know Google Analytics, how to hook it up. When I first started out, like, what's Google Analytics, right? I mean, you don't know. And then, another piece too, there's all these people, and some of them, I think a lot of them have good intentions, right? But a lot of people won't give you advice, right? And one thing I'll tell people too, like, and one mistake I did, I would pay for stuff too soon, right? I would like, okay, I don't really need a sales platform now. I'm not ready for it, but they're offering it for 50% off for 1 year, right? But then 6 months later, you've never used it. Like, man, I've wasted this money, right? So I made those mistakes a lot of times. And then maybe I probably listened to people I shouldn't have listened to in the past, but you really don't know what good advice is, right, until you implement it, right? And then it's from the lens too, right? It might have worked for them back in 2006. Does it work for you now? I mean, maybe it does, maybe it don't. And of course, there are a few people out there like want to charge you money and scam you, and I think those people are pretty obvious. But definitely be aware of the advice you take, and and wait till the last limit to pay money if you can, right? I mean, of course, you got to pay money for some things, right? Like you have to pay for hosting the domains and different items, but definitely hold off on money. Don't make the mistake I did of just paying for stuff too soon, just because like a special deal or something, right? And another thing too, like there's so many things, people doing great things, right? So you got to keep in mind too. And another thing to talk about too, like, the stats are like startups and small business, like we fail at 95% of the time. You hear all the time you're going to fail, you're not going to make it. Well, I'll say like, you have to expect success sometimes, right? You have to like me, I fantasize, every once in a while, like, what do I do if I did raise $3 million? What would I do if I did get 100 customers? How, and those are, like, what's the song, more problems, more money or something like that? More money, more problems. Mm-hmm. Like if you do raise $3 million, you got to perform, right? You got to hire people. You got to put stuff together, right? And $3 million is not a lot of money when you have a business, right? Because a good person, regardless of if they're software development, marketing, sales, it's going to be at least $75,000, $80,000 for someone decent, right? Mm-hmm. And that, so that money goes very quickly, right? And another thing I was talking about too is you got to keep a positive attitude. And another thing too, like if you're married or family or close friends, man, it's there's a great help they support you, right? And like it
Yeah.
can't be enough where they say, well, I'll let you do what you want to do for 2 years, you got to cut off, right? I'm definitely really behind your corner, right? Because it's going to be a struggle 4 or 5 years. Like if you have like your spouse telling you like sending you job postings every 6 months, hey, here's a job you can do. Are you going to apply for it? Or
Mhm.
like it's not coming. It's like that. That's not beneficial, right? You definitely got to make sure your close family is behind you 100%. And the other thing I remember too, like no one's going to understand what you're doing, right? They might say they do, they don't, right? I mean, they don't. Like they just don't. They have no idea what you're doing, right? Like my wife all the time to say, "What are you doing on your phone all the time?" And I try to explain to her, I have to be on my phone, right?
Right.
Like, what are you doing? Like, so like who are you texting? Like, I'm not texting. I'm posting some of the social media, or I'm talking to a customer, right? And she doesn't get it, right? And those
Yeah.
things have to work through. And you got to be a very positive person, right? I would say if you're like I'm probably too negative, and I gotta work on that. But if you're like a negative person, man, it's a struggle, right? Because it's you're gonna hear no so many times. It's just and what, I mean, bottom line, you got to believe in yourself, right? And surround yourself with people who are going to believe in you. You have to believe in yourself. You have to expect success. You have to realize that, hey, I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I think those are all great tips, and definitely it's important, especially in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. I think a lot of people think or have a misnomer of, you're your own boss, and you can kind of relax a little bit when in fact it's a grind.
Yeah, yeah. You don't have a boss. You have multiple bosses now. The vendors, the customers. Yeah, you have multiple bosses. And then a lot of people say, I want my own company, so I don't have to work 40 hours. Oh no, you don't work 40 hours no more. No, not even close. More like 60 to 70 hours.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
for
people are
sure.
like, I want to do my company because I could drink a beer with the boys from like 1 to 2 in the afternoon on Monday afternoon. You can do it all day long. I do that it once myself, go drink,
Yeah,
smoke a cigar, have a couple of beers, hang out, But then, where am I Saturday? Where am I Sunday? We're at 8 o'clock at night, right?
all right.
There's a cost to everything.
For sure. No, absolutely, completely. So obviously, as you kind of touched on the HR part of it, there was any possible field that you could have picked to start a business. What are there specific? I know you kind of alluded to this earlier, but are there, if you can kind of um, uh, talk more about it, were there any specific points that drove you specifically to form an HR-driven business? I know we kind of talked about it earlier, but I was just wondering if you could expand on that.
Yeah, I mean, basically, when I was like starting to think about starting business, doing the startup stuff, everything I read was said like, you should do it on something you're passionate about, something you like have some knowledge about, right? So I'm passionate about HR. I did it for 25 years in the military. I had an HR manager job, HR director job after I got out of the military. I kind of knew HR. Everything I read said, if you do a startup with an idea to make money, it's probably not the thing to do, right? You're gonna end up stopping, right? So, and like I'm pretty knowledgeable about HR. Now, don't be wrong. My point, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know HR is pretty simple, right? If you can read, you can figure out HR. But basically, like, I didn't want to start like I don't want to be something involved with tech too. I'm interested in tech, but I didn't want to start, like an AI company or like like a sales company, something I didn't really know. So HR is something I knew I was comfortable with. And pretty much, if you answer any kind of HR question, though, I'm pretty comfortable. I can figure that answer, right? And I was just comfortable with it. I had a passion for it, and I think HR is important.
For sure. No, absolutely. I mean, even in big companies, that's in some cases the backbone of hiring decisions, benefits, compensation. So no, it plays a very integral role in a company as well. So that was one question, and I have some other questions, but I want to let you touch on. I know Cavness HR has a very exciting Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign that you guys are doing. And so I was wondering if you want to tell our listeners about that and how it works and what the end goal is maybe of this campaign.
Yes. So I'll give some background there first. So, before I would never thought about doing a crowdfunding campaign. I always thought crowdfunding is like a Kickstarter, someone was making a water bottle or a skateboard, it's not like a hardcore product, right? But I have a friend, he's a military veteran too out of Austin. And his company, he's a software company. His company is like doing like like Airbnb for people who do military PSS moves, right? And he did an equity-based crowdfunding, mine's reward-based, but he did an equity crowdfunding campaign. I want to say it was Seed Fest or Seed Invest, and he was like $425,000. And I just happened, he did a LinkedIn post. I would never know he did a LinkedIn post, right? I saw like, whoa, what? What's going on here, right? That's a lot of money. So I talked to him. He told me everything. I'm like, okay. let me like do more research. I did more research. Like maybe it's something I could do, right? And another reason I did too, because like I think I already validated my product, validated my idea, but I think this is another way to validate it, right? So validate the idea again, and another two when I start fundraising, right? If it's successful, I could go to the VCs, angels, and say, hey, I did crowdfunding, of course, put in a pitch deck, or crowdfunder raise, X amount of dollars back by X amount of money, right? I think this would be more impressive like that, right? And so that's the reason I did the crowdfunding. So the crowdfunding campaign, you have to, I had someone that consult me on it. So there's like two goals. There's a public goal, which is $25,000. And they always say make that as low as possible, right? Because like the example is like, suppose I say I'm raising $25,000 and someone else is raising $100,000. And let's say by 25,000, I actually raise 50,000. So that's like, I don't know the math, but say that's 200% of my goal, right? It looks good. I raised 20%. And I said, other company raised $75,000. Well, even though that's more than 50,000, they only met 75% of the goal. So that's the negative on them, right? If that makes any sense, is what I was told. So the public's 25,000, like internally, probably like, I want to raise as much money as we can. So far, like a lot of people are sharing, a lot of the people doing videos, testimonials, so, just like, and another challenge too, part of being negative, like 99% of people are positive, right? But there's always those people, right? Like one person, we're like first connect on LinkedIn. So I was like sending like direct sales navigator messages, like videos, all this kind of stuff, right? Like it's really time consuming. He replied and said, hey, Jason, I remember giving you permission to send me a sales navigator message. Like, I think I was like, what? Like when we first connection, I don't need your permission, right? Said, whatever, right? Like someone else said, this is a shitty process, this should be more personalized, like, just stuff like that, But for the most part, people are sharing, people like, and it's hard you can have time. People are like, I can't donate, but I'm sure, people do give what they can, And of course, that's another thing bring up too, like as an entrepreneur, I've learned too, like, and I think a lot of people tell you this too, like, it's like the people close to you or like your like close friends, close family, you ask like, can you share my social media post? And they never do it, right? Like, can you like my page? Oh, I haven't done it yet. No, you haven't done it yet, right? Like, are you kidding me, right? And like some like random stranger, like you might like, and they like support you like more, right? It's always thought that was kind of weird, right? It's like, and this is how it is, right?
For sure.
And like I had a talk with someone on a podcast. They're like, why is that? And they're like, well, how come they don't understand this is going to help me? That, well, it's not their job to understand, right? You have to convince them to understand and do it for you, right? But I always thought it was kind of like weird, right? Like these like pretty much random strangers, like I had one person like we're on LinkedIn and we're like we could like talk once in a blue moon. And man, this person like did a video for me, share stuff on she went all out. Man, like man, I'm gonna hire this person. I haven't got fundraising, right? She did so much for me, right?
Right.
And other people, like close friends and family, like, what are you doing for me? Like, are you kidding me? And that's how it is, right? You just gotta accept it, go with the flow, so to speak, and be positive.
For sure. No, I mean, to your point, like different personalities, that's always one thing that's I think common, I guess, within entrepreneurship. You get with different personalities and kind of having to adjust to that. And so
go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Another thing with the crowdfunding campaign, a question, I'm all over social media, like LinkedIn, TikTok, blah, blah, blah. And like, so I've done a better job, like, maybe like doing a better job. Okay, I send John Bob a Facebook message. Maybe don't send him a LinkedIn message tomorrow, right? But I don't have the people resources, right? So people come back, guy, you're spamming me. Like, well, actually, I'm not spamming you, right? And I was just different than spam, it's how to work through that sometimes. Okay, this person complained, don't send them nothing ever again, right? As far as the crowdfunding campaign, right? So I could have maybe done a better job of quote unquote not spamming people, as they say, but it's hard to do with all the connections I have,
Right, for sure. So is there a website or how can people contribute?
Yes,
what are the different ways?
Thanks for reminding me about that. I forgot all about that. Yeah.
For
so
sure.
The link is https cavnesshr.co/crowdfunding. https cavnesshr.co/crowdfunding. Of course, you can reach out to me too. And of course, you can donate any kind of money you want to, but if you donate $10, I'll give you a public thank you. So I'll put like, I want to thank, at David Smith, I do on, if we're like taking on LinkedIn and Facebook, I would do it on there. I want to thank, at David Smith for supporting the Cavness HR campaign. I really appreciate you, blah, blah. To learn more, I'll give the link. And then $75, $70 or $75, I'll give you a t-shirt. Then there's like a webinar, ebooks. And also for $250, if you do gift $250, I do like a social media blast, right? So I'll blast you and your company links across social media. Maybe have you on the podcast, all this kind of stuff, And then I give like a real, if you actually sign up for the HR, I give it like a real big discount on if you sign up now through the crowdfunding campaign. I can't remember the numbers, like 25-30% off, I have to look at the numbers, but I give it a big discount on that.
That's good. So everyone that's watching this, please contribute to the Cavness HR Indiegogo campaign. Jason, I'm sure will appreciate it.
Yes.
Sounds good. So I guess just couple more questions here. Obviously HR is also kind of a competitive field with kind of small companies like yours kind of formulating the HR framework. So kind of with the developing landscape, I guess, on the tech side of it, where do you see HR trending towards, or what kind of technologies do you see HR companies using either in the short term or long term?
Yeah. So there is a lot of competition in the market. There's like, last time I checked, there's like 7,200 companies doing this, right? And from one person HR consultant to becoming like ADP, right? And so there's a lot of competitions out there. And unfortunately, in the HR, there's a breakdown we call it old HR, new HR, and like not meaning my age, just like mentality and thought process. Old HR, like you might have an HR person, HR company, and you might ask the HR person, "Hey, HR person, do you know so and so marketing is doing this?" Well, I don't care. I don't work in marketing. It's not my job, bro. Right? Or, hey, HR person, so and so needs to talk to you. They can't come after work. Well, I'll leave at 5 and I could talk to them, right? Or the new HR, like no more, like like more collaborative, like do stuff like that. And a big difference too, like old HR, they're like it's all about compliance, right? It's black and white. There's no right or wrong, right? Where new HR is more like, okay, they care about compliance. You got to obey the law, but can you work around things? And the big example is like, let's suppose you have a company and you have a person like by far your best person, right? Like not even close. Like he just outperforms everyone. But you have a rule that says you missed work for 3 days, like the excuse, like you just disappear 3 days, you get fired. This person is going to work for 3 days. And so the old HR person is going to say, well, we got to fire him, right? I don't care about any of that stuff, right? New HR would be like, okay, I know what the policies is, but can we at least wait to find out why he's missing 3 days? Like, do you have a car accident? He's like, what's wrong? Like, that's not like him, right? So that's a big difference too. And unfortunately, like the tech piece, like we're talking about HR consultants, most HR consultants don't even have a website or it's horrible user experience, I mean, like, I don't want to mention the name, but like a lot of big HR companies, you know that if you Google like, blank HR company, customer service or user reviews, I mean, it's dreadful, right? It's horrible. Yeah. I'm like, and basically like all these big companies, they're all a call centers, right?
Yeah.
So you call some random person, they might get for 2 weeks. So kind of off the subject, I really have a cousin that owns a company down in San Antonio, and she's one of the big companies that first started a company. And she would tell me like they would call like 2 weeks later, right? It's like, I figured out already, right? What am I wasting this money for? And she finally, got rid of them. I got a smaller, actually bought it like internal HR, right? So this is bad for user experience, right? And I have no idea how they're still in business. But I think the tech piece can be exciting, right? Because a lot of good tools out there. Like there's a lot of good companies out there. There's a GoCo.co out of Houston. There's Bamboo HR out of I believe Utah, Linwood, Utah. There's Zenefits. There's Bambi.com. There's a lot of good companies out there, and there's more enough customers for the HR companies like the divide the pie up, right? I mean, we want to do like AI solution, and where we are from there. But basically, for the AI, the plan is like you'll pick up the phone and say, Cavness HR, what's the minimum wage in Dallas, Texas? Small business owner, the minimum wage is $7.25. And some more complicated like Cavness HR, I'm thinking about getting rid of somebody. How do I go about doing this? Small business on this outside of our scope. Here's some available appointment time to talk to your HR business partner. Which one do you like? So that's the part we see AI. And also, if you want to expand like the onboarding, onboarding is like a manual, tedious process. Even like you use like digital signatures and automation is still kind of slow. So how do you improve that process and cut that down? So things we're trying to solve. But I think tech can be a good big piece of that moving forward.
For sure. No, I mean the AI piece, like you said, definitely sounds exciting, and would be curious to see how it might change the field too, kind of in a whole, with that technology being deployed across different channels and different companies.
Yes.
What tips can you provide either for current entrepreneurs or people that look up to their own, the people that they know that might be entrepreneurs, and kind of that whole ecosystem, and kind of like a typical day, if you will, of an entrepreneur, and kind of the grind that's in it.
Yeah. One thing I'll say, like, if you want to be not even an entrepreneur, but like, everyone has something they want to do. Like they want to learn how to play guitar or play piano, or they want to climb a mountain, whatever it is, like you have to get started right. There's no day like today. Just get started right. It's going to be horrible. You're like, you're not going to know what you're doing, but there's never a perfect time, right? I mean, there's never a perfect time. If you want to do, you got to do it now, right? You got to figure it out now, do it now. Another thing I too, with entrepreneurship, there's always like, oh, you're gonna fail, like 95% of us fail, whatever, right? So you have to expect success. You have to expect success that you're gonna make it. And then I think one thing that people don't realize, and I definitely didn't realize at first, right, is a time period, the commitment, right? Like it's not 6 months, it's gonna take a long time. Like example I use all the time, like when Facebook first quote unquote made it, like 2009, 2010, someone interviewed Mark Zuckerberg. Mark, how does it feel to be an overnight success? You're like, oh, well, if you mean, spending 6 years coding in my dorm room is overnight success, well, yes, I made it, right? Yeah, it's great, and people don't realize, or they forget that it took Steve Jobs and Wozniak 8 years to make Apple, right? They didn't just pop up one day, make a computer with millionaires, right? It took them 8 years to make Apple, right? And even then, they almost run a business several times, right? And all the stuff they had to go through, right? It's not an easy process. That's why I said before, like it's important to have the support of the people around you. I mean, it's a grind, it's a struggle. Like I have a saying I like to say, sometimes you crush it and sometimes it crushes you, right? And more often than not, it's going to crush you, right? And you have to get back up. And like people say, like, well, what's a failed entrepreneur? Well, I don't think you fail as an entrepreneur until you quit. Once you quit, then you probably failed, right? But if you keep, and of course, sometimes you got to quit because life and stuff like that, But as long as you keep going, you're going to go too. Another thing I say too, like an entrepreneur, you need to figure out a cutoff point, right? Like my cutoff point is I will never mortgage my house. Like that's my cutoff point, right? Of course, part of it, like, no, my wife's cutoff point too, right? But I'll never mortgage the house, right? I might take out equity loans or take out personal loans or do whatever, I might, I have, just do whatever. I'll never mortgage the house. So you have in your mind, what's your cutoff point? What's the red line you're not going to pass, right? It's like, I don't know. No, is it no? I would never go into my kids' college fund, or never do this or whatever the case would be. But you need a cutoff point, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure, absolutely. What is the long-term vision for Cavness HR? Maybe 5-10 years down the road, kind of.
Yeah. So big dreams, big vision. I want to do an IPO. I want to be a national HR tech company. So first of all, we want to put all the HR songs out of business, the bad ones. And then we want to compete with ADP's benefits and compete with them and, take market share from them. But the long term, we want to do an IPO and be a national HR tech company. And even long term, like I have Cavness HR, I want to do long term, I want to do like Cavness HR, Cavness Media, Cavness Recruiting, like something like Gary Vaynerchuk is like, Vayner Recruiting, Vayner Media, something like that, like long term, but with the Cavness HR being like the baseline, like the core product of everything else.
For sure.
That might be more fantasy than actual reality,
Hey, you never know. Like you said, never give up, those dreams that might be a reality. I know you secured David Metzger, right, on your board. Yes. So that was pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Can you kind of, if you don't mind, to the extent that you can, kind of share how that came about and what it's been like to have him on the board as well?
It's been great. So those who don't know who David Metzger is, so he owns a company called Sports Farm Market with Warren Moon. He came as a big time sports agent and stuff. And, I'm sure everyone knows who Gary Vaynerchuk is. David Metzger is actually one of Gary Vaynerchuk's business advisors. Oh. And so how I found David Metzger, I'm always like Googling stuff, searching for pitch competitions. And I found he does a 2-minute pitch competition called David Metzger 2-minute pitch competition. So I entered it, I was accepted to compete. I think it's back in August, September, and I finished second. And for those who don't know, pitching 2 minutes is pretty hard, right? It makes you really concise and tell you want. So I did it in 2 minutes. I got second. So finished second. I got a year free coaching. It's like group coach, Facebook coach, or whatever. And so I'm also a part of a group called Bunker Labs. So Bunker Labs, we're a nonprofit. We have military veteran start companies. We have chapters all across the nation. The headquarters in Chicago. So I have run the veteran residence here in Seattle. Veteran residence, VIR, there's a partnership with us, Bunker Labs, and WeWork. WeWork gives us like free space, and we do like wiki huddles, like connect with different people, whatever. And so I asked David Mitzer through his like his like a this is not a personal assistant, like maybe an admin assistant, or like a whatever it is, like Jake Fleshner. Send about the email, hey, I know I just came on the coaching program, blah, blah, blah. I told him what I did. Man, it'd be great if you come, because David's like real positive, right? Like really, really positive, right? Mm. Come in and talk to my VR group, right? About whatever you want to talk about. And like, yeah, I can give you 20 minutes, fine. So he talked, and he actually take like an hour and a half, right? Because people ask him questions, they really engage, right? So did that. And then the person, like I'm a volunteer, the person above us, Renee Bob, she's like the regional director then. She's in charge of putting together we do a national summit and we need a keynote speaker, right? And so after that, I asked her, hey, how do you think David? Man, David was great. I said, hey, he might be a great, speaker for the national summit. You're like, you know what, Jason, you're right? So he didn't end up that, he didn't speak because scheduling didn't right. But I was able to, hey, I was able to connect him to VR and maybe I could speak and get it right. So my mind gave me like value several times, right? Then I was able to go to him, hey, David, the best or whatever, blah, blah, can you be a board of advisors, right? And and he said yes, right? So I think he was like you have to give like value, and yeah. But it's definitely like, I mean, like people like pitch like, you have David Mitchell on board, like how the hell you pull this off, right? And like it goes to the thing, like what's the saying? Rain Grace had the saying, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Yep. I could easily not enter anything, right? So another thing I too, like when you're doing this startup stuff, what you're doing now, you're not going to know how it's going to play off later on, because everything I've done successfully or negatively, I can backtrack at 6-7 steps when like a meeting with this person or this or whatever, or all goes back to networking, I think. Yeah, but David Mitchell has been great. Actually, so we did a 2-minute pitch back in September. It's like something figuring out. He actually turned that to a TV show. And so I filmed that last week. So
nice.
His TV show is going to be out in June on Bloomberg TV and Amazon Prime Video. And to be transparent, honest, I didn't do that good, right? Him and like him and other people like blasted me, right? So I mean, it's all good, right? But it's a good experience though. But that'll be out in June.
For sure. No, that's awesome. I'll be sure to look out for that. Sounds exciting. Then the last 2 questions kind of surround HR as well. With students that are looking to get into HR, knowing what
this is a good one. Yeah.
Kind of knowing with their background and experience, what if they were to ask you kind of for guidance, what would be some of the tips you would provide them with to kind of navigate?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first thing, off the top of my head, I can think of 10 people out of college recently with HR, master's of HR, I can't find a job, right? So first I would say, you gotta be realistic. It's gonna be tough for you to find a job, right? There's HR people like 20 years experience are having trouble finding a job. So you might have to take a job as a customer service person or salesperson or something you don't want to do to make ends net and meet. That's not right. So you gotta realize that, right? Another thing too with HR people, for some reason, a lot of companies would have someone with new HR, they'll put in recruiting. And recruiting and HR is not the same thing, right? And that's in the wrong recruiting. But you gotta remember, they might put in recruiting, say, this is recruiting for 2 years. At that 10 in 2 years, you still don't have HR experience. You have recruiting experience. There's a difference, right? So there'll be, like I say, economics based what you have to do. So this, you might have to take a recruiting job, be aware of that, right? Biggest thing I would say with if you have an HR job or trying to find an HR job, man, you have to do some internships. You have to put yourself out there, right? Like the thing with the HR community, HR, the leadership, like we'll call them HR people, the big wigs, they all live on Twitter. So if you're in HR, you have to be on Twitter, right? That's how HR people communicate. And there's so many ways to network. There's the Society of Human Resources Managers, like the big HR organization guide. Each Wednesday, there's a thing called Twitter chat. And so Twitter chat, basically you go on Twitter, you have a conversation. So each Wednesday at noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time, each Wednesday they have like different experts come in. And they might talk about what's like diversity, inclusion, or recruiting, or benefits. And so the day before, they post 8 questions on their website. And at noon, they start posting the questions like, diversity, inclusion. What is your company's diversity inclusion plan, or why is this important, or like that's the basic question, right? And everyone answers them, and the expert like puts it like his 2 cents in, right? And what's great about it, usually it's like 250 HR people on there, right? And what you do, you follow everyone, right? You make comments, you like it, so you instantly build your network. So there's that, and then there's another one called HR for All. It's done by a lady named Nicole Garetti out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And she's actually a marketing person, but she's combining HR marketing. So her Twitter chat is once a month on Tuesday at 3 p.m. I think I'll send you the information, but it's basically like, more like a diversity inclusion, well, social media for HR, right? And she does a thing she started called the most, I'm getting this wrong, the most 100 inclusive HR people, right? So anyone who does something to make HR more inclusive, right, wherever that may be, right, it's on the list. It makes a big deal. And she actually just got sponsored by GoCo HR, which is a big deal. There's stuff like that. There's another guy named Josh Rock out of Ohio. Every Monday he does a Twitter chat. That's how people find jobs. Each Monday he finds 10 recruiters and basically answer all basic HR questions, right, to find a job. But it's very hard to find an HR job right now. I mean, period, right? Because, I hate to say it, like, I mean, this is sound bad. No, we'll say like all the old school HR people held on job, and so it's very hard. I would definitely say if you can't do internship, right, you got to network, like I'll tell people, not even as HR, another thing too about HR, like a lot of HR people, like they'll send like 1,000 resumes, like in different HR jobs. I would recommend find an industry you want to work in, right? Do you want to be in tech? You want to be in the fish industry? You want to be, social media? Find the industry and learn the industry, right? You got to be a business person, right? Too many HR people are like, I'm an HR person. Well, no, you're a business person, right? You got to learn the business because, impress them in the business and they're, fall in love with your HR later on. So you got to do that. Another thing too, like you got to do like stuff different. Like I advise people like, if you're networking, like at college, you look around, everyone's your same age, same degree. Do you really think you're gonna find a job there? Like probably not, right? Like do something different, right? Like I advise people, and it's kind of off the wall, like go to a Chamber of Commerce, go to a Rotary Club, go to the Lions Den. Well, I'll be the only college student there. Exactly. You'll be the only college student right there. And they're gonna go to you and say, what is this person doing here, right? And why not go to the Chamber of Commerce? Those are people who own the companies, right?
Right.
I mean, you have to do things differently. And it's a grind, right? I mean, it's, finding a job is a full-time job. But definitely, if you're in college, man, try to get internships, right? And like you won't get into like paid, unpaid internship things, that's a different conversation. But any way to get experience, right? You got to do it. And more people know, the better, right? Because most recruiters, they're gonna go to their LinkedIn. People look for jobs, they're gonna LinkedIn. They're going to LinkedIn and like you have like 25 connections and you don't know nobody, they're gonna probably pass you up. Or if you probably 25 people the same, they're gonna call that person up. What do you know about Jason Cavness,
Yeah.
But I would definitely tell people that, I mean, being realistic, it's gonna be hard to find a job in HR. It's not easy, right? It's not easy at all. You gotta have expectation, man, is probably the biggest thing, I would say.
For sure. No, completely understand. Good tips there as well. And yeah, obviously internships, even if, like to your point, if they're unpaid or if it's something else, it at least provides like a foundation, at least for a starting point, because everyone has to start somewhere.
And another thing I want to bring up too, if I forget, there's all these big time HR people like there's Steve Brown, Kirsten Griggs, Sarah Morgan. There's a lot of people out there and they want to help you, right? But you have to reach out and connect to them, right? You gotta say, hey, Steve Brown, I've been following on social media. Like Steve Brown, he does like a blog. He's a board member of a board of directors of Society of Human Resource Management. He has a podcast. He has like 2 books. He's out there, right? And people like that, you just reach out to them, like, and they're gonna help you out as best you can. But you have to ask. You have to be vulnerable, so to speak, right? If that makes any sense.
For sure. Being comfortable with the uncomfortable, as they say.
Yes. Yeah.
Sounds good. So the last question that I have is, and it's kind of a fun one, I guess. What's your favorite aspect of being an entrepreneur?
Oh man, that is a good one. Sometimes there is no favorite aspect, right? Because you're like, man, what am I doing here, right? Man, this sucks. Like off the subject, I remember, we all think of Elon Musk. He's SpaceX, Tesla, doing all these great things, the superstar genius. The Da Vinci of our age. And he had an interview on a podcast, or maybe it was a live stream. It was something, right? And the guy asked, "How you doing? How you doing, Elon? How's life?" He looked for, he always pauses. He paused. Right now, my life sucks. Like, you do not want to be me right now. And like, he was like, what? You just lost SpaceX. What are you talking about? Don't want to be you. Like, everyone wants to be you. No, actually, you don't want to be me right now. My life sucks, right? And so I think you got to keep that in mind, right? Like, this stuff does suck, but there's a lot positive about it, right? Like, if you're an entrepreneur, you do the right reason. Well, you're trying to solve a problem, right? You're trying to make the world a better place. It could be a small problem, a big problem. So, I mean, that is a fun, and, putting yourself out there is a lot of fun, being on social media, doing stuff like that, meeting great people, that's a lot of fun. And, I think there's a balance too, to all this stuff, but it is fun, for the most part, don't be worried. There's some days like, man, this 9 to 5 job looks pretty good right now. Or like, me just, staying at home, drinking beer all day long, watching TV sounds pretty good too, right?
For sure.
But
for
I mean,
sure.
but it is fun, right? And this, like, I like to learn, right? That's the stuff I learned, like before I became an entrepreneur, like I didn't know what Google Analytics was, podcasting, social media, like financials, just you learn so much, and there's so much to learn too. Like off the
Sure.
subject again, but I can't remember his name. This guy, like the startup expert, he did a thing. Someone asked him, "Core, what should I be doing as an entrepreneur every day?" And he answered like, "Well, first I'm presuming you want to build like $1 billion company, and I must presume you have to sleep 8 hours a day. Here's the 6 things you have to do each day." So he's like, he had 1 hour marketing, 1 hour building the product, all these 1 hour, right? And then he like, hopefully this is sarcastic, right? Because there's
Yeah.
no way you're gonna spend this 1 hour building a product or 1 hour doing this. You're not gonna do 6 hours right a day, right? Basically, you gotta. Basically, he said, you gotta figure this out yourself, right?
For
These are the
sure.
things you try to do, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it is fun, Hopefully, everyone who's doing this, they're having like 90% fun, at least 90% fun.
For sure. No, you always gotta balance it out with fun and reality, as they say.
And,
So
and that's another good point too with entrepreneurship. Like it's a roller coaster ride, right? Like, and it'll be in the same day, right? Like within minutes, like you get some great news. Oh man, this is great, and then get another call. Man, these customers cancel, right? How am I going to
right.
do this? It's like, yeah, you got to have an even kill. You got to have some. You know what? I think, and one thing people don't talk about more as an entrepreneur, you have to have some kind of emotional balance, right? You got to have some kind of emotional stability to go with all the roller coaster, right? Because it's some pretty low lows and some high highs, right? It's hard to keep even cure, right? Another thing, like I'll tell people too, like you're never as bad as you think you are, and never as good as you think you are either, right?
Yeah, for sure. No, absolutely. All of that is true. And yeah, I mean, a lot of highs and lows, and it definitely involves kind of having thick skin to kind of go through those
Yeah,
highs and those
you,
lows.
you definitely thick skin for all the no's you're gonna hear.
For sure. No, I mean, I hear you. I mean, when we first started out, heard a lot of no's, so it definitely takes some grit and determination to kind of persevere through those tough moments as well. So sounds good. Thank you, Jason, for being on. I greatly appreciate it, and appreciate your time.
No, thank you. I really enjoyed this. Is a lot of fun.
Thanks.